In the early years of the 19th century, long before highways cut across the land and long before electric lights filled the nights, there was a quiet stretch of America that few people spoke about and even fewer remembered. It was not the place of great battles or famous speeches. It was a place of routine, patience, and slow days. This story takes place along the old Erie Canal, not during its grand opening, but during its long, ordinary life, when nothing remarkable seemed to happen at all. The Erie Canal ran gently across New York State, connecting the Hudson River to Lake Erie. When it was completed in 1825, people celebrated loudly. Bells rang, cannons fired, politicians gave speeches, but those moments passed quickly. What remained afterward was silence, water, and work that repeated itself every single day. Most days along the canal began before sunrise. The water was usually still, with a thin layer of mist floating just above its surface. Wooden boats rested quietly at the edges, tied loosely with ropes that had been used so often they felt soft and worn. The men who worked the canal rose slowly from their sleep, stretching tired arms and stiff backs. There was no rush. The canal did not demand speed. It demanded patience. A canal boat did not move quickly. Pulled by a single mule walking along the towpath, the boat drifted forward at a steady, unchanging pace. The mule's hooves made a slow, repetitive sound against the packed dirt, step after step, hour after hour. Sometimes the mule driver walked behind in silence. Sometimes he sat on the edge of the boat, holding the rope loosely, letting his thoughts wander wherever they wished. The cargo was rarely exciting: barrels of grain, bundles of timber, sacks of flour, occasionally crates of tools or simple household goods. Everything moved slowly, as if the canal itself encouraged calm and discouraged urgency. Even conversations seemed quieter near the water. Along the banks, small towns appeared and disappeared. They were not large towns. Most had a few wooden buildings, a general store, maybe a tavern, and a handful of homes. People lived close to the canal, not because it was beautiful, but because it was useful. It brought supplies in. It carried goods out. And then it moved on, indifferent to the lives beside it. At the canal locks, time slowed even further. Boats waited their turn. Water levels rose and fell. Gates creaked open and closed with familiar sounds. The lock keepers worked calmly, following the same motions they had learned years earlier. They spoke little. There was nothing new to say. Every boat was similar to the last. Every day followed the same pattern. In the afternoons, sunlight reflected gently off the water. Birds rested along the edges. Occasionally, a fish broke the surface, leaving behind a small ripple that faded quickly. The canal did not hurry to replace it. Nothing here hurried. Winter changed everything, but not in dramatic ways. When the canal froze, boats stopped moving. The water turned still and silent. Ice formed slowly, layer by layer. Towns became quieter. Workers found other small tasks to fill their days. Repairs were made carefully. Tools were cleaned. Plans were written for a future season that everyone assumed would come. There were no grand stories told about these winters. People stayed warm, ate simple food, and waited. Waiting was part of life. Waiting required no explanation. Years passed like this. Decades followed. Children grew up beside the canal without giving it much thought. To them, it had always been there. It was not impressive. It simply existed. They watched boats pass. They counted mules. They learned the sound of water moving through the locks as naturally as they learned their own names. As railroads began to appear, faster and louder, the canal slowly lost importance. Trains rushed past with noise and urgency. The canal remained calm. It did not compete. It did not adapt quickly. It continued to do what it had always done, even as fewer boats arrived. Some stretches became quiet for days at a time. Water flowed gently with no purpose other than to move. Grass grew taller along the banks. Wooden posts aged and cracked. Paint faded. Nothing asked to be repaired immediately. Nothing demanded attention. By the early 20th century, many people had stopped thinking about the canal at all. It was still there, but it belonged to another time, a slower time. People passed it without stopping. Cars crossed over it on bridges without looking down. Yet the canal remained patient. On quiet evenings, the water reflected the sky just as it always had. The towpaths stayed empty. Old log houses stood quietly, their windows dark. If someone walked along the canal at dusk, they might hear nothing but their own footsteps and the distant sound of insects settling into night. There were no ghosts of great events here, only the quiet memory of work done carefully and repeatedly, of goods moved slowly, of lives lived without urgency. Even today, parts of the canal still exist. Some sections have been restored. Others are nearly forgotten. But the feeling remains the same, calm, unchanging, steady. The Erie Canal was never meant to be exciting. It was meant to last, and in that way, it succeeded. If you imagine the water now, moving slowly under fading light, you can almost feel time stretching out, becoming soft and distant. The canal does not rush forward. It drifts. It waits. It allows each moment to pass without resistance. And as the water continues its quiet journey, there is nothing left to do but rest, letting thoughts slow down, just like the canal did. Day after day, year after year, without ever asking for attention, without ever needing to be remembered.